Nearly half of Tennessee inmates end up right back behind bars within 3 years after their arrest. That has led to a staggering rate of repeat offenders within our local jails. Our records request revealed over the last 3 months, 230 DUI cases are pending in Washington County General Sessions Court. Of those, at least 65 are drug-related. But the DA's office tells me, in reality, that number is far higher. Some of the examples of Molly here at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. One is a darker white form that you can see here. Others filled with what looks to be more like sand. When we first checked in with TBI 3 months ago, the turnaround time for a toxicology report was 9.5 months. Today, it's a time frame that TBI admits is still far too high. In fact, where the camera is right now, there was a car that was pushed off, flipped upside down. You can still see pieces of the car remain strewed along with the memories of this home right here. You'll look behind me. This is just one of the homes that's facing damage. The roof has been ripped off. You'll see some of the shingles. The wind is picking up. No plant, just plans. Where has the money gone? If it was a time period beyond 5 years, would you feel good going home at night thinking, I'm doing everything I can to protect my officers?
No.
Nowhere in that news release, which I'm looking at right now, does it even mention the chemical being released or the wastewater that was discharged into the river. When Russ walked out to check his main barn in the morning, he found that the foundation had been lifted about 6 inches off the ground. A fine for not wearing your seatbelt in Tennessee is $10. Littering, a $50 fine plus court costs. The fine for Lee, charged with 6 counts of animal cruelty, $2 per horse. Because of that backlog, a person could get a DUI, then be charged with another DUI, all while awaiting the results of a toxicology report. Any difference given the national context?
In Tennessee, none.
There is an active crime scene right now. There are actually 2, and here's what we know right now. Just moments ago, I spoke with the lead investigator, and he told me right around 9:42 this morning is when a person entered armed with a handgun demanding narcotics. As you're about to hear, Dr. Reach was quite open, using the clinic's violation as an opportunity to address what he calls a bigger problem. Beyond this damaged fence, Christian's neighbor had no idea that the storm would bring with it a sense of closure. Again, just to give you some perspective, since we last talked with you, there is now, we first checked in maybe half an inch when we started this afternoon around noon. Not even that. Now, when we pulled back the live truck, I would say easily about 4 inches or so coat the ground right now. You know, we could talk about the damage all that we want, but the visuals are what really take your breath away. I'm going to step out of the shot right now just to describe to you the story of the man that lives here right now, he and his wife. If you look up at the porch on the corner, he was standing at the edge right there when the tornado hit. He went and looked off his back porch, saw the funnel coming, then ducked back around the corner and saw all of the damage that you can now see behind me. When minutes can mean the difference between life and death, every second counts, and we trust first responders to have that same sense of urgency. But public records detailing the morning of June 2nd in Greene County reveal something disturbingly. Greene County EMS prides itself on response times.
About 11 minutes anywhere in Greene County. In the city, went down from 5 minutes to less than 4 minutes. I'm very confident.
I met with EMS Director Robert Sane to question that confidence after learning about a specific incident.
I had one call about an incident that happened at one of the local hospitals.
A meningitis patient who died during a delayed emergency transport.
If this issue is found to be true, I think heads should roll, including the EMS director and all involved.
A 911 records request confirms EMS responded 35 minutes after the initial call. That morning, instead of getting to the patient in time, the concern was getting home on time.
The crew refused to take an out-of-town trip that would have made them work over past their quitting time at 8 a.m. The result of 2 calls waiting 30 to 45 minutes to be ran.
So you're saying that they actually refused to take the call?
Basically, that is exactly what they did. I don't accept that from what the crew had told me. It's too long of a delay for an ambulance to respond on any call. The crew that was supposed to go on the second call, the emergency transfer, had given us the excuse that they had to take care of babysitting that day. Well, one of them I understood her reasoning perfectly. The other one I did not. But
would that ever be an acceptable reason for an emergency call, though?
Technically, no.
Ultimately, It was another crew altogether that came on the clock and took the call.
There's never a cut in the care for the patient. That is the only reason that I could see not to terminate the employees that were involved in it. If this patient would have not been in a medical facility receiving care and they would have denied that patient care, I would have terminated them.
Instead, Sane gave 3 employees involved a written warning, stating if they refuse to run a call in the future, they will be terminated. The 4th employee, who took it upon himself to act as supervisor and call in the 2nd crew, received just a verbal warning.
All he had to do was notify the supervisor. The supervisor would have handled this, and this wouldn't have happened.
The thing is, since that warning, Sane did end up firing that employee and another for their additional involvement in other incidents. Sane says although he learned a quicker response would not have prevented this patient's death.
It's still too long of a delay.
Right.
And I admit that, and I accept that. They messed up. They were punished. If you ever delay treatment of a patient or delay response to a call, you will be terminated.
In law enforcement agencies across the nation, there are 2 lines of defense officers don't leave home without: a gun and a bulletproof vest.
That might be my lifeline to go back to my family at the end of the shift.
There's so many things in this day and time that can happen. It doesn't matter if you just get out at a convenience store, you walk into a school, it's a dangerous world.
In Sullivan County, it's not surprising Sheriff Wayne Anderson requires every officer to wear their bulletproof vest. But what many may not realize, each of those vests have an expiration date.
They deteriorate over the years because of perspiration, wear and tear.
I asked a representative from Galls, a company that sells bulletproof vests, to break down what the 5-year shelf life the National Institute of Justice places on body armor really means.
Those 5 years is the absolute that they guarantee no failure from an impact of a weapon of the size that it's been certified for. After those 5 years, it's still viable probably, but it's not guaranteed.
After that time frame, if something were to happen,
if it's the chief, the county commission, whoever is making the decision takes that full financial responsibility.
if it was a time period beyond 5 years, would you feel good going home at night thinking, I'm doing everything I can to protect my officers?
No.
In Greene County, the number of bulletproof vests outside of that 5-year range is dramatically more than those that are. A risk Sheriff Pat Hankins learned the first time he took inventory.
What we discovered is that we had 40 men that were wearing vests at this time that were out of date.
40 men.
Yes.
Sheriff Hankins says a majority of the vests aren't just a couple months or even a couple of years old. Try a decade or even more.
The oldest vest I had was 16 years old.
Is an officer currently wearing that vest?
Yes, it is.
And that is how it'll remain. 2/3 of Greene County officers strapping themselves in bulletproof vests day in and day out that may or may not be effective until replacements arrive in about another month. We saw that statistic come alive during our visit to Greene County.
It's 11 years old this month.
See, you can't even see the date of issue. Right?
One patrol officer agreed to talk with us, but for safety concerns, we've concealed his identity. When did you get this vest that you're wearing now?
2006.
Now we're in 2014. How does it make you feel? I mean, every day in your line of duty wearing a vest that is that old?
It's a little bit disconcerting, especially when you have kids at home.
There was only one person we could bring these serious concerns to for explanation. Former Sheriff Steve Burns, whose 16-year reign over the department ended in September. He spoke candidly on several occasions, but denied an on-camera interview. Burns emphasized, quote, I would never put a vest on an officer that I felt was unsafe, and said a lot of those vests are still in good shape beyond the expiration date.
I mean, it's not a dishwasher that we're dealing with that has got a 1-year warranty, and yes, it continues to work on. Who knows? Who's going to stand behind that vest and let someone shoot them after a year to find out if it does work? If the manufacturer tells me it's a 5-year warranty, I believe the manufacturer.
And last time you and I talked, you didn't deny that there very well could be and were vests that were between 10 and 16 years old. Burns said, quote, I didn't monitor them. I had a training officer that worked with my chief deputy. You're making it sound like we didn't do anything. That's just not true. Just because he wants to order 40 vests doesn't mean we didn't keep safe vests on our officers. Burns told me other departments may very well be in similar situations with expired vests. But a public records request revealed not so. These 5 counties are all within the 5-year range, and Carter County should have a handful of new vests by the new year. There's a federal grant designed solely to help provide bullet-resistant body armor for officers. As for Burns, the most recent time we can confirm he received that federal grant money for new vests was 2012.
I feel it hadn't been cut correctly in the first place, and it should come to the belly button. And here's the top of the vest.
Burns stands by what he said, that he never put an officer in danger.
There's not a county or city around here can't afford a vest for their officers. I don't believe it. They can't afford not to buy them.
In the midst of putting themselves in harm's way every day, it's a risk surrounding departments and Greene County moving forward are not willing to take.
It shouldn't have never happened. And I hope that in my term as sheriff here that it never will happen.
Today I went back to Greene County as close to 50 officers were fitted for new bulletproof vests, about 10 more than the department originally anticipated. A grant through the Department of Homeland Security will pay for a majority of them. And Josh, it's also important to note that former Sheriff Steve Burns, who we heard from, urged us to call the county's purchasing department, saying that they bought lots of vests. In the last 5 years, Greene County purchased 22 level 2 vests for its officers. The thing is, there's roughly about 60 officers that are assigned to bulletproof vests.
I mean, he had gotten through open heart surgery. He had gotten through carotid artery surgery, you know, all these things, and he was still here. And he was just on his way to a birthday party and didn't get there.
Penelope Pearce struggles to make sense of what will forever be remembered as the day, August 3rd, 2013.
He was sitting at a stop sign.
To friends, he was Dwight Sluter. But to Pear,
he was just daddy, you know.
To her daughter,
Papaw, and I mean, just 2 little peas in a pod. He had this camouflage coat that was Tennessee orange. Where are you going to camouflage yourself at, you know? But, you know, that was just him. He was funny, you know, he was very colorful. Very, very colorful.
But it was in the moments Sluter sat at a stop sign after their family reunion on the way to a birthday party that all went black.
We kept thinking, where is he? I called him, and usually if he doesn't answer, he would call right back within 5 minutes.
That summer afternoon, the Sullivan County District Attorney's Office reports driver Patricia Ray was on her way home from the flea market.
My phone rang, and it was my uncle, and I knew immediately. I picked up the phone. I said, "Where's my dad?"
Ray lost control of her car on Highway 11E and slammed into Sluter at 45 miles an hour, rushing to get to the hospital.
I had to drive by and see it.
But Pear held out hope, never imagining a trip to a Knoxville hospital would end driving home alone.
I said, "Is he in a coma?" And he said yes. I said, "Is he not going to wake up?" And he said no. So then I had to make the decision to turn everything off. I told him I loved him, and that was it.
But in many ways, it was just the beginning. Pear wanted answers.
I said, "Was it alcohol?" And they said no. I said, "So it's pills, huh?"
Several. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's official toxicology report lists oxycodone, trazodone, tramadol, and Benadryl among the drugs found in Ray's system.
I mean, just this area we live in, it's a problem, a major, massive problem.
Tennessee leads the nation, I think, in prescription drugs per capita.
From the Sullivan County District Attorney's Office,
we are seeing more people get on the road under the influence of these prescription drugs.
To the DA's office for the 1st Judicial District,
it's not the meth, the cocaine, and the heroin.
One thing is clear.
It's actually legally prescribed drugs that we're finding in most of our DUIs.
Our records request revealed over the last 3 months, 230 DUI cases are pending in Washington County General Sessions Court. Of those, at least 65 are drug-related. But the DA's office tells me, in reality, that number is far higher.
It's just our TBI lab reports won't report Subutex, Suboxone, Xanax, and any other narcotics if they have a BAC above 0.08. So it is rampant, there is a lot, and Xanax is the main culprit.
In your professional opinion, how many would you say do involve drugs?
60 to 70%.
DUI prosecutor Joe Schultz says that stems from the incredibly easy access to addictive prescription medication right in our region.
Even 3 years ago, where you had 70–80% of our cases were alcohol related only.
In Sullivan County, I'm told prescription drugs are at minimum tied, if not more of a contributing factor in today's DUI cases.
We have several defendants that will come through and say, well, I've got a prescription. That is not a defense in Tennessee.
It wasn't enough to protect Ray, convicted 2 weeks ago of vehicular homicide in Sluter's death.
If you're impaired by legal means or illegal means, or whether it's alcohol and drugs or just drugs, it doesn't matter. If you're impaired, you're impaired.
Either way,
one more person that decided to do something and somebody else has to pay for it.
one woman's price, another man's family will continue to pay for the rest of their lives.